Are you starting to stress out that your sleep is going to worsen in the upcoming months because you sleep better in the winter versus the summer? If so, I want to let you know that you're not alone, and this could have nothing to do with you as an individual. Instead, humans might just be wired to sleep longer in the winter versus the summer. A new study out of Germany shows that individuals, even in an urban environment, sleep an hour less in the summer months versus the winter months. In addition, they get 30 minutes less REM sleep and 30 minutes less slow wave sleep. And these are really interesting findings because these individuals were in an urban environment. And we would assume that light exposure would have less of an effect on their sleep because in the winter, they're typically exposed to more light than they normally would because of light pollution. However, we saw that their sleep still worsened in the summer versus the winter months. The reason that assumption was made was because our circadian rhythm, that's the ebb and flow of cortisol, the alert hormone, and melatonin, the sleepy hormone, is influenced by light exposure and inexposure. When our eyes are exposed to light, that tells our body to suppress melatonin and produce cortisol. Whereas the opposite is true when there's no light. That tells our bodies to put the brakes on cortisol and produce melatonin instead. Therefore, it could be assumed that if you live in an urban environment where you're exposed to artificial light, even in the night, that seasonal changes in natural light would have less of an influence on the hours you are required to sleep each night. Although more research is needed, this study would indicate that we need to put less pressure on ourselves to get that full 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night in the summer months. I find that a lot of my clients, they have an idea in their head that they need to get 8 hours, and if they don't get 8 hours of sleep, they're not going to feel good the next day. And that's in part because of the messaging that we hear in the media, as well as from health professionals, that 8 hours is the magic number. These days, we're finding that 7 hours is likely what most people need because we don't work jobs that demand a lot of physical labor. And in addition, some individuals who aren't good sleepers may be able to do just fine with less than 7 hours of sleep. I find that a lot of my clients do amazing if they can get 6 hours of high quality sleep. So again, one of the main takeaways from this study is in the summer months, you need to adjust your expectations in terms of how much sleep your body needs because it might just be hard-coded to sleep less in the summer versus the winter. And that's likely due to evolution because in the summer months, we're exposed to more light versus the winter months, and that's just been hard-coded into our DNA. And it's important to take the pressure off yourself because if you're worried that you're not getting enough sleep when in fact you are, that's going to increase your anxiety around sleep. And whenever we're anxious, our body goes into fight or flight. And it's going to be producing cortisol as opposed to melatonin. And that's the last thing we want to do when we're trying to sleep. The other key takeaway from this study is that you might just need to move your bedtime a little later in the summer months, which I think is great news. There's so much going on in the summer, especially in the evening, that I welcome a later bedtime. Although the study is shedding some light on the fact that we naturally sleep less in the summer, I don't want to discount the fact that there are environmental influences that can impact our sleep in the summer months. The first of those factors being longer days. The sun sets later, it rises earlier, and that's going to naturally impact our sleep. So my advice to you in the summer months is make sure that you either cover your windows with window covers like the Easy Blackout window covers, my favorite product. What they do is they cover your window completely so no light gets in. Therefore, if you want to go to bed before the sun sets or you want to sleep later than sunrise, the light coming into your window isn't going to disrupt your circadian rhythm, because our eyes are so sensitive that even when our eyelids are closed, they can detect light. And speaking of which, I really like just wearing a sleep mask. It's a super easy way to prevent any environmental light from interfering with your sleep. The second factor that can influence our sleep is the warmer weather. Our core temperature has to lower 2 degrees in order for our body to synthesize melatonin. So it makes sense that in the hotter months, it's going to be harder for us to get a good night's sleep. So what I recommend doing is to keep your bedroom temperature somewhere between 65 degrees Fahrenheit and 70 degrees. Also, one thing you can do to make sure that your body temperature drops at night is to take a warm shower or a bath about an hour before you want to fall asleep. That's because the warm water will warm our skin temperature, and as soon as we get out of bath or shower, our core temperature is going to drop because the external air is cooler. Another way to stay cool in the summer months is to make sure that you're sleeping in natural fibers. So that includes your bedding as well as your PJs. I like linen the best when it comes to sleep because it's very breathable and also moisture wicking. Other good options include organic cotton and tinsel. In the summer, there's also more pollen in the air, making it more challenging to breathe correctly overnight. This can definitely interfere with your sleep. If that's the case with you, I would recommend investing in a HEPA air filter. I like the HEPA air filters because they can filter out the smallest of molecules. That way you can make sure all the dust and pollen is removed from the air that you breathe. Also, if you can find it, an air filter that has a night mode where the light isn't shining so brightly can be helpful as well, because as we know, light exposure can interfere with your sleep. All in all, there's only so much we can control when it comes to our sleep in the summer months, because after all, this new study out of Germany has shown that there is a possibility that humans are just wired to sleep less in the summer. As I mentioned before, more research is needed, especially in a normal population. This study examined individuals who already had disrupted sleep, therefore might be more sensitive to environmental changes. So at the end of the day, I would expect to sleep maybe an hour less this summer. There are so many other reasons outside of light exposure as well as temperature changes that can be behind your poor sleep. Those sabotagers include hormonal imbalances, gut dysfunction, liver issues. What I would recommend doing is checking out my free mini training, The Hidden Sleep Sabotagers. You can sign up at my website, Kelly Murray Adult Sleep, to learn more.